I'm happy to know about. What else? Random stuff. Public transit. I'm kind of happy that I know these chunks about public transit and how, right, how European cities have managed to combine 19th century infrastructure with modern contemporary infrastructure through building. Through basically, you have to connect, right? Because the original subway system, metro systems in those like legacy European cities would have been built mainly in the city center. Naturally, right, in the contemporary day, there's much more suburb development. And so you need to connect the suburbs to the central network. And there's ways you could do it. And there's also, and I found this just very charming and interesting. Right, so of course, back in the day, right, the railroad business was extremely competitive. So in New York City, right, like Grand Central was owned by one rail company. And then Penn Station was owned by a Pennsylvania Railroad, right? And naturally, those guys are competitors, so they're not that concerned about, interlining or, being integrated. Of course, nowadays, right, with consolidation or you kind of do have to do it. So, and pretty much the idea is that, the utility of a system is much better when, naturally the city center, which is where the jobs and all that are, is combined with the system. Did this tree just die? Yeah, I think this tree just died. Should I be suspicious of that leaking? Well, can't disrespect the police line. Yeah, I will be suspicious of leakage. I suppose it's a bit marginal. Also, yeah, some of these embassies, yes, do look pretty nice. Thank you, taxpayer of foreign countries. People actually walk by these things, especially when it's like it's Morocco again. Especially when it's not embassy day stuff. But probably not a whole lot per se. Yeah, probably not a whole lot. Jaywalking once again. Let's go. Would I give up any cooking knowledge? Probably not. Sure, I do like my cooking. I recently just realized that, right, generally speaking, right, it's better to be less weight than more weight. Certainly, like, selfishly be like, just like a personal, something you can personally seek to achieve, right? Just, losing some weight. Maybe there's some marginal side benefit, or at the very least, it could be like, I generally look at pictures of myself from, say, like 2020 or high school, or even just like really bad pictures from like a year ago. I look at them and I genuinely think to myself, like, everything makes sense. I have no right to gripe about anything. I genuinely think I genuinely think this is not a self-esteem issue or anything, but it's just like, a simple observation. I genuinely think that a meaningful period of my life, or at least where the photo record exists, I genuinely looked horrible. It's like, again, like, everything makes sense. I have zero right to complain. Thank you to every girl who humored me, given I look at some of the pictures and it's like, I apologize for even looking in your direction. I just was joking because, of course, naturally, it's literally only a retroactive thing. So I'm not sure. So it's unclear to me if in a year I will feel the same way about me today. I will say, feels like I have less acne, or at least it's not as obvious. I think I'm slightly better groomed, not today, but slightly better groomed on average. You know. Yeah. It's like is dating a market? Like in terms of like a financial market, right? We hear about where like efficiency and underpriced versus overpriced. And like that's like in my arrogance, like gosh, I'm clearly such an underpriced asset. Why don't these girls want to waste the evening or a year of their life with a schmuck like me? And then you say it out loud, and then it's like, huh? Nah, I get that. In the Gordon Growth model, clearly I'm deficient, you know. So I don't know. It's always a fun thought experiment of like what would your ideal partner, like what traits would she have, or he, depending on the audience. Although again, my YouTube audience is very male tilted. Oh, that's all from my Rick and Morty video. So I don't think there's really a natural viewer base for this type of content besides a future self or a future version of me. A future version of me is presumably always going to be a male, unless of course big government forces as that right-leaning or joke is, right? Like mandatory. That's such a good joke. Not being political, but it's like the fear that government will have mandatory gender surgery, and that's why you should be anti-healthcare. It's like, bro, government can't even. The government health, like it'd all be done through a private thing, right? The same way like it's done contemporarily. But it's such a good bit, like mandatory government. Mandatory government convergence. That'd be great. Of course, you know, shame on me if it happens. But, you know, I would buy the no contracts on that. But, yeah. So, I'm 90% sure that the audience for this type of video is literally only me. So, I don't need to waste my time on doing the multiple gender things. So, diatribe aside. So, if you do think about, like, what's your platonic ideal for a girlfriend would be, it's fun to think about what traits he or she would have, or she would have. And what do you imagine, right? I'm sure somebody pops in your picture, right, of who your ideal picture or partner is. And it's like, well, who would that person, what would that platonic ideal, you know, want in her ideal partner? And what's the overlap with what I look like, or what I am? Like, is it a Venn diagram if the two circles never intersect? Probably not, right? Yeah, probably not. Any good books? Where's my Andrew Tate, how to get, where's my Hustlers University guidebook? Come on, Cleveland Park, you're not sending your best. But, yeah. So in my head, it's like, I don't know. It is classic where it's like bro names actress or like model Lady Y and thinks he's being super niche or something when it's like, bro, we all we all can appreciate something like that. You know, it's like some dude says like, um, you know, that Sarah Sherman person from SNL, kinda cute, but only when she doesn't do like the random non-conventional hairstyles. Yeah, I feel that. Or it'd be like, you know, in the Spider-Man movie, not Zendaya, but the secondary love interest, Andrew Rice. Like, congrats, bro. Super niche. But back to the original thought experiment. That's just a fun thing. And so you can then do a second version of the thought experiment where instead of thinking about what your ideal partner is, or like what traits they would have and like, you know, some physical phenotype, you can then flip it and be like, well, what traits would somebody need to have, or what niche things would they need to be interested in for them to be interested in you? And if I think about that, it's like, well, shit. I'm not sure I like the implications of this stuff, Mr. Subconscious. Okay, we'll walk to Cleveland Park instead of Woodley. It's actually due to kind of, again, my bladder is not, clearly lacks capacity. Much to the bane of my existence professionally. It is horrible. You have a 2-hour call and it's so much stress. Or, you know, by the 1 hour mark, you know, I know I'm done for. It's just miserable. But look at that. That's a nice view, ain't it? The type of thing that makes these walks marginally worth it. Nice sunset by a taxation without representation thing. And a Welsh flag. You know, sometimes life ain't that bad. Anyways, back to what I was saying. So it's one thing about what traits would she need to have in order to, or what would she need to be interested in order for a schmuck like you, or by what I really mean is of course myself, to be interested. It's like, huh. Well, clearly, someone like that needs to have a horribly incorrect sense of self-esteem and and sense of self-worth for a schmuck like me in order to have a for such a person to ever view me as a viable person. But setting aside the obvious need for the girl to have self-esteem issues in order for a schmuck like me to benefit, I don't know. Interest in niche financial things, probably. Interest in, you know, not set pieces in life, but just casual things, right? Or just doing, honestly, probably like the opposite. Like whatever is the status game is not doing that. Okay, so it's like, I'm sure I have enough arrogance that I'm like conceptually very open to status games, but I do suppose you live life long enough and you get conditioned to, you know, not like status games. New York Times stuff, because it is a Sunday. So, you know, status games, pretty much, yeah, just they should need to be very low key. Appreciate random financial topics. Having well, maybe again, right, by answering this question, you're still in effect still answering what you would like in her. You know, so at the end of the day, it's still a self-serving exercise where I'm just, you know, patting myself on the back. But you know, somebody's got to. So it may as well be me. Yeah. And then you go through the exercise and you realize, well, what are the odds that such a person exists and is geographically close to you? It's like, well, crap. I think somebody had I forget who, but somebody had a nice point that like conceptually, like if you have like a trait you're looking for or like something you can filter people by, conceptually it was like 50-50, like you can just cut off half the population with one trait. Conceptually, to narrow down from 8 billion people to your partner, it's loosely 2 to the 33rd power, which gets right in 2 to the 33rd power gets you like 8 billion, which is the population. And on one hand, of course, that's a big number, but in the sense that you only need to make 33 discrete decisions effectively, and that's how you can narrow down to your partner what you like in a partner. And I think if that is a helpful framing. It's like, or just reminds you, like you are naturally filtering for things, and then B, in the grand scheme of things, you're not filtering for a lot. And then C, you kind of can't filter for things that much, right? You can't perfectly, unless of course you pay for Tinder Premium or Hinge Premium, in which case, well, here's a wide buffet of things you can filter on. You know, setting aside the pay-to-win aspects, where there's only so much optimizing you can do. I think somebody made a good point where people, I hate to say it, but it's Janan Ganesh, that pretentious Financial Times twat, who I still read. I am actually pretty happy I got a picture with him when he came to Penn's campus once. But he had a nice point where the same way you can't make a League One player into a Champions League player, like people, you can't optimize optimizing the small things is not. And his point was like, at the end of the day, it all comes down to having a job you enjoy doing and having a fulfilling romantic life. And everything else is on the margins, right? It's like optimizing your diet is marginal. Optimizing some like spin cycle thing or fitness is marginal. And ultimately, it all comes down to a fulfilling career or job and a fulfilling romantic life. You know, I probably only check one of them, right? I'm happy with being a ENF schmuck, but so when I say, you know, certainly in the best case, I only check off one of his boxes, and it's like, and there is a tendency where you could like optimize and other ways how to make up for that, but I do, his point does resonate. Yeah, it is like, if the definition of privilege is just not needing to worry about things X, Y, and Z, then, well, like, I don't know. I just want to check those two boxes, and then I will not care about, well, I'll care, but not in a committed way, like, not in a way like actual people of conviction and dedication and principle do to deal with the great injustices that exist and the great challenges of our time. And then there's me, nope, I just want fulfilling career and a fulfilling romantic life. And, you know, that's kind of what thousands of years of my lineage has come to, but that is what I want to optimize for. Clearly, it's a bit tougher than high school makes suspected, but yeah. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with. That's actually a pretty nice, fulfilling ending to the video. it is a shame that like all the like probably my best monologues and stuff, they all happen at the end. So the people who actually watch these things, they hear me ramble at the start, and they tune out. But alas, what can I do? You know, maybe I'll get better at these over time. Quick fit check. Saint Etienne. Right. Right. Again, there's novelty to wearing unique jerseys and not a generic Premier League rag. As you know, Saint Etienne, right? Not that I'm a Francophile, but I certainly do think that there's some allure and prestige to, right, like Saint Etienne, Le Havre, Marseille, compared to Brighton, Sheffield, Luton Town. You know, again, pretentious that I am, which is deserved. But alas, yeah, the sun's out, but that was a pretty good walk. Right, Embassy Row, past standard residential to more standard residential. Did some jaywalking, always nice. Hour, 5 minutes. It's a good amount of steps. I will say one thing, I genuinely get a lot of steps in. And frankly, the steps are undercounted because I've run to the subway stop. That was like, loosely speaking, 4 miles. But yeah, my steps are undercounted because I run to the subway stop. Like today I ran like that mile in like 5 minutes. And so if anything, it's under my physical effort is, if anything, undercounted. I guess you can't even see the fit check there, but anyways, yeah. Janai Ganesh kind of knows what he's talking about, and all of my good ideas are said at the end of videos when the click-through rates gone horribly wrong.